last week?
Wow.
Good job.
That was good. It's
good
cold
one.
in here.
It is. Are you going to put it?
Yeah.
Is that your prayer shawl?
No, it's my blanket.
I really hope you
big
do
is
this
this?
whole thing with that.
I will.
Do the Sith thing.
Yeah.
So Stetson actually did that one time.
Do it.
Where was that you did that?
I think we were talking about, like, how do we pick volunteers at a church service
Oh,
to
yeah.
do certain things, and like, do we just ask people in our congregation?
And I think you had a hood on at the
I
time.
did,
Yes.
yeah. And so I said I would dress up as Darth Sidious. Yeah. Oh, this is nice.
Think of all the other people who've wrapped themselves in that.
I don't think very many people have wrapped themselves.
Dude, the ladies do a prayer ministry in here.
That's fine.
I'm pretty sure half the women of our church have worn
That's
that
fine. It's just a blanket.
covered in COVID.
That's fine. I'm vaccinated, and I've had it twice.
Does that make you glad you got vaccinated?
I don't know. Let's not talk about that.
Well, hey, welcome to House Parties, guys. We're so thrilled you guys are here. Special welcome to anybody who's new. I'm Nate. This is Darth Sidious.
That's right. I'm Stetson.
He's Stetson, and we kind of lead this thing. But the real important people here are actually your leaders. So if you haven't given them a lot of love and praise tonight, go ahead and do that.
You
No
should.
criticism. No criticism. Unless we're your leaders, and then, by all means.
That would be weird. Please, my group, refrain from doing that to me right now. That
Criticizing?
No, the love and praise. That feels like
Stetson?
self-seeking of like love and praise your leaders.
Love and praise Stetson, all of you. Like, bear hug him right now.
No, that's weirard. That's gonna.
Skylar's
be
going to do it.
No,
Skylar's probably on you right now.
That's great. But the rest of my group is looking at me like, no,
No, not going to happen.
We're not that kind of group.
Well, hey, we're excited that you guys are here, as we said. We're going to be back in the book of 1 Timothy tonight.
Yep.
As you guys know, student night, which, by the way, was so awesome last week.
It
I
was
love
cool.
doing that. We got another one coming up in April.
The food was so good.
The food was so good. I ate so much of it.
I'm glad it was. Well, yeah, it was really good.
I know, there's been a few weeks where it's been good.
Panna pasta.
Yeah, pan
And
pasta
it's
with
good
2
pasta.
pieces of chicken.
And it's good pasta,
Yeah.
but it was nice to have,
Yeah, sliders. And that corn. Ooh, so good. But anyways, so what we do here at House Parties, if you're new, is we like to take time just to walk through things with you guys, have a conversation,
Yep.
and then ultimately hand it off to you guys, because you don't want to listen to two, middle-aged guys, because we are almost middle-aged now,
Yep.
talk to you guys about something.
Yep.
You guys would much rather talk with yourselves.
Yep.
So, having said that, couple quick announcements
Yes.
before we get in. Number one, we've got mission trip coming up. We're going to South Dakota. It's going to be in July. I think it's like the 3rd through the 8th. If you're not signed up, we got a handful of spots left. So do us a favor, get signed up.
Yeah.
Then we can start doing training and all that fun stuff.
Yep.
Next announcement is, I believe it is next week. We're not doing house parties.
Oh, right. Spring break.
Sprung break. Yeah, so we're going to give you guys off. We're going to give the leaders off so they can go off and do, I don't know, whatever leaders do.
Sleep.
Sleep. But we're not going to be meeting next week, so we'll be back the following week, and then that'll be good.
Yep. We started planning the summer, and we've got
Ooh.
some good things
Okay,
coming.
so should we list them?
We can.
We're
sure.
doing a Rockies game.
Yep.
We're doing one night where we do a student night, and then afterwards we've rented out the Crest, and we're going to go do a movie there. So you guys bring all your friends, that kind of stuff. We're going to be going back to the Dieger house over on
Yeah.
Sealy Lake for another big bonfire and barbecue.
Yeah, that was
which
cool.
that was so dang cool.
Yeah.
We're also going to have a student night night where we bring out like the food truck
Yep.
and do that thing.
Yep.
What else?
I forget. I've got a list somewhere, but we'll get you guys the details eventually.
Yeah, hopefully in the next week or two, we'll actually get some real official calendars printed up, so you guys can lose them or give them to your parents. I don't know.
But basically, just look forward to it. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
It's gonna be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we'll have a whole group of new 7th graders coming up in.
Yep.
Which is gonna be super cool. We're only losing 2 or 3 seniors because we've been rebuilding over the last 4 or 5 years.
And we'll still do house parties over the summer.
Yes, we will. I love house parties. We'll probably take maybe a week off.
Yeah.
At the end of the school year as we get ready to go into summer.
That'll
but
be nice.
Yeah.
It's good to take breaks.
Cool. Well, hey, we got some slices for you. And if you don't know what those are, just random, interesting, fun things that we find in culture. All right, what do you got?
So there was a theft in Denver from a truck. Someone broke into a truck and stole something, a container, out of the truck. And this container, this is a little bit gruesome, so I don't know. You probably can't. You can just shut your ears if you want. But
should I bleep it?
No. The container was full of human heads. You know how like people donate their bodies for research?
Yeah.
They were transporting real human heads to a hospital or research center, and someone not knowing what was inside stole it. Can you imagine
the karmic justice?
Can you imagine their reaction when they opened this container? Denver police put out something on Facebook. They said, if you find this container full of heads, please contact the police. And I was thinking, what else would someone do if they found a container full of heads? Like it should just be general knowledge that you call the police when you find a container full of heads.
Oh my gosh, man. I don't even know what I would do if, I was a part of the thieving life and I stole something and it's just
human heads.
Yeah.
Human heads.
Makes me wonder, how do they shrink heads? Like shrunken heads, like the old Aborigines.
I don't know. I think it's chemicals.
Wouldn't that be really weird though, just to have like a bunch of like little mini human
Yes, that would be really weird.
That would be even creepier than normal human heads.
It would be. Yes.
All right, well, we got a new scavenger hunt we're going to be doing next week. While you guys are all on spring break, we're going to go to Denver.
Look for a container of human heads.
Yes. Oh, man, so good. All right, well, that's a good slice. Mine's not really a good slice. It's just more so like...
We're going to do it anyway.
Exactly. So as you guys know, the world's kind of crazy right now. You got a country who's just making a problem for everybody.
Yep.
Thanks, Russia.
Yep.
But Ukraine, they've got this president, Zelensky.
Yes.
He is awesome.
Yes.
Like, I don't know if you guys have like hopped on TikTok. He's definitely been on there a lot, but I have just been so fascinated watching this guy troll Vladimir Putin all the time.
Oh.
So, dude, because, okay, so
what is he doing?
So, well, back up for a second. So, the president of Ukraine, 4 years ago, do you know what he was?
A comedian.
He was a comedian and an actor.
Yeah.
And he was starring in a television show where he played Guess Who?
Oh, Vladimir Putin.
No, the president of Ukraine. He was literally in a TV show playing the president of Ukraine because he was some guy who was a teacher who just got so fed up with the corrupt politics where he like went on this rant, somebody filmed it, posted it online, and everybody wrote him in and voted him in as president, so he became the president.
That's awesome.
And then like after 3 years of doing this show, he was like, yeah, this country's really corrupt. I'm going to become president. And he is. And he is now. So he's like an actor, he's a comedian, really good at social media. But there was this thing I saw last night that I thought was just really cool. So Putin's been doing all these videos and all this kind of stuff, and he straight up got caught green screening a meeting he was doing because he had reached out his hand and there was a microphone sitting next to him, but his hand went right through it. And so everybody's like, oh, dude, he just green screened this whole meeting. And so the president of Ukraine, in his address that he did last night, when he finishes talking, he reaches down, touches the mic, and just pushes it to the left, and then looks at the camera, and it cuts.
Nice.
So I loved it because I'm like, dude, this guy is straight up trolling the president of Russia while they're being bombed. Yeah. And I was like, man, this guy is just a great leader, and he's really funny.
Yeah, he seems solid.
So, anyways, that's my slice. I know, it's not crazy or anything like that, but it was just... it was a good one. It's good to stay on top of what's happening in the world today.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, hey, why don't you talk a little bit about what we're doing tonight?
All right, so if you weren't here last week, we started a series...
2 weeks ago.
Oh my gosh, you're right. We started a series where we're opening up the Bible and reading it together, and we're going through a book called 1 Timothy. By the way, if you have never read the Bible before and you have no idea how to like open it up or where to find anything or what these numbers and tiny letters mean, you are not alone. Like, so many of you have not done this before, and that's okay. So ask your leaders questions. Like, if they seem dumb, they're not dumb. Like, just ask. Like, we got so many good questions in our group last week.
And if you don't have a Bible, we'd love to buy you one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
for sure.
Hey, speaking of which, time out. You're wrapped up in a blanket right now, and yet you have your jacket sitting right there.
I don't care. It's weird to wear a jacket. It's like I'm going to leave at a moment's notice.
And yet grabbing some random blankets?
Yeah. Dude, you're just jealous because I'm so comfortable.
I'm pretty comfy too.
Okay. You do look comfy. Those look like comfy clothes.
I know.
Oh, yeah. So we are going through First Timothy, just chapter by chapter. And Nathan and I, we are going to point out a couple things that you could talk about if you wanted to. But ideally, your group is going to read the chapter for yourself. And you can talk about whatever you want. Like, bring up things that you see, questions that you have. Like, make it known if something just makes no sense at all. Like, we're probably going to do that in the things that we talk about. So
yeah, because we got some interesting things to talk about in chapter 2.
This is going to be good.
Oh, all right. Well, we're going to be in chapter 2, Capítulo 2, for my Spanish-speaking friends. They know Spanish. They're in Spanish right now.
I didn't know what capítulo?
Chapter.
Okay.
Dos 2.
I know what dos is.
The do-si-do.
All right. Okay.
All right. Well, what do you see here off the bat, Sets? And by the way, this is only 15 verses in chapter 2. Mm-hmm. And there's some heavy-hitting stuff in here that we got to talk about.
Yeah. Well, the first thing was the first 2 verses, and it kind of ties into your slice. First of all, then, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings be made for all people, for kings and all who are in high positions, that we may lead a peaceful and quiet life, godly and dignified in every way. That's fancy language for basically saying pray for everybody, including the people who are in authority over you and over other people. So it just got me thinking, it's like, to what extent should we be doing this right now with what we're seeing and reading in the news?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's a tough thing to wrestle with, right? You know, and if you guys ever study history, there was a dude by the name of Dietrich Bonhoeffer in Germany, and he lived in Germany when Hitler was in power. And, like, he really struggled with this whole thing of, like, man, like, I know I need to pray for this guy, but, like, there's also this, like, real evil happening right now and people being murdered. And so, you know, like, where do we take a stand against evil? Like, where do we just pray and hope that God intervenes? And that's kind of a tough thing to wrestle with, you know. And for me, thinking about this passage, it's like, more than anything, as followers of Jesus, we need to be about peace, right? And I don't know what your Christian friends' timelines look like right now. I know what some of mine do, and let's just say peace is not necessarily the first thing that many people are calling for. You know, there's a lot of people going like, hey, we should get over there. Let's go fight this war. You know, and again, like, I get that, like, I do. But sometimes I wonder if maybe we approach our relationship God more as Americans and then as Christians, when it's like, well, like, what if we did things as followers of Jesus first and then allowed our nationality or our own convictions to kind of follow in after? Like, maybe a good thing to talk about is, like, are you a person of peace? I mean, think about all your relationships at school, all the conflict. I mean, we love a good conflict, right? How many of you guys love a good fight? Right? We love gossip.
Not when I'm involved.
Not when we're involved, but, like, there's a point where it's like, when we feel wronged, we love to get justice, right? I mean, that's just kind of human nature.
Yes.
And yet, what seems so clear that Paul's going, and Paul lived this out, by the way. Like, if there's a guy who could have been ticked off and mad and wanted revenge and justice, it was Paul. Like, the dude got beat. He got thrown in jail. He had everything taken away from him. And yet here he is saying, like, no, like, pray for these people. And I think that's maybe because Paul saw these people who were in leadership the same way Jesus did. Not as enemies. But as actually beloved sons and daughters of God.
Yeah. All right. Okay. The big one. Yeah. Unless you got something before it that you want to talk about.
No. I mean, it's all, you guys can read through it. There's some good stuff to talk about, but there is one that I think we do need to talk about on here.
We got to clear some stuff up.
Yeah, because it's been abused, right? What we're about to read, it's been so abused all throughout history. So I'm going to let you lean into this.
Okay. All right. Verse 8 through 15. I desire then that in every place the men should pray, lifting holy hands without anger or quarreling. Likewise, also that women should adorn themselves in respectable apparel, modesty and self-control, not with braided hair and gold or pearls or costly attire, but with what is proper for women who profess godliness with good works. Let a woman learn quietly with all submissiveness. I do not permit a woman to teach or to exercise authority over a man. Rather, she is to remain quiet. For Adam was formed first, then Eve, and Adam was not deceived. But the woman was deceived and became a transgressor. Yet she will be saved through childbearing if they continue in faith and love and holiness with self-control.
Oh, that's so loaded.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
All right, so historically, this has been a passage that's been used to essentially try to put women in their place.
Yes.
Where it's like, hey, ladies, the men are working here.
Yeah.
And I gotta say, like, as a dad of 5 girls now, as a husband of a wife, like, man, if I didn't understand some of the context of what's going on here and what Paul is really saying, and I just read this at face value without knowing the culture, I'd be like, forget this, I'm out. You know, like, I'm not gonna abuse women or try to put women in a box and say you just need to be quiet.
Yeah. This is a good time to bring up that when we read the Bible, it's important to understand what's happening in the time and place that this is happening in. So, Timothy lives in a place called Ephesus. And in Ephesus, there was this really predominant religion that was run by women. And it was this really emotionally and like physically charged religion where women were encouraged to be aggressive and in your face and like almost like compete with each other to have like this higher place of value in this
And it was
religion.
like super carnal too.
It was like some
and if you don't know what
stuff.
carnal means, you can Google that
Yes.
when you get home.
Yeah, actually don't do that. No, that's a terrible idea.
But it was hypercharged sexuality and emotions.
Yeah, and so it very much was like there was this culture there where it was expected for the women to be very vocal about the things of this religion. And Timothy is coming into this culture and talking about these things that they're just learning about, and they're starting to let go of this culture and enter into a new one. And so Paul is encouraging Timothy to encourage the women. It's like, just sit and listen for a while. Like, take a break. Take this pressure off of your shoulders of having to do these things. And like, when he's talking about, it's like what women wear, like they shouldn't wear these fancy things. That was part of the religion of like, this was like the uniform. It would be like, I don't know, like think of anything that would be inappropriate to talk about loudly at church. Like if someone comes into a church service or like even in our house parties and just like they have this agenda of like talking about their political views and it's very one-sided and they don't really care about what's being spoken of. They want to talk about their thing. That would be really inappropriate. It's like you're missing the point of what we're talking about here.
Well, in the same way that if everybody showed up to a house party wearing either a bikini or a Speedo, you'd be like, maybe put a little bit more on.
Right, exactly. It's like, this is making people uncomfortable. This is of a value set that is different from ours. So, yeah. And in other places in the Bible where it talks about this, it's almost on the progressive end, where like in other cultures where women were seen as beneath, like here in Ephesus, it's like women and then men, but it gets flipped in like the rest of the Middle East for the most part. And they're like, God has taught it's like men and women are equal. Like they have the same value. Women are not property. Men are not owners. Like respect each other. But there's also this culture. It's like this is like this very progressive thought. And there are other times where Paul is like, don't get too carried away with this new thing. Like gradually ease into this thing. But for now, just like enjoy the freedom that you have. But don't make other people uncomfortable with it at the same time. So, but yeah, out of context, it's like, all right, shut up, ladies. The men are talking. And that's terrible. Like, that has happened.
And that's, honestly, that's how it got used for so long in the church. And I love what you said there, right? You got to understand the culture and what was happening before you actually talk about what it actually means. So when you look at this, like, there's actually some really good things that Paul says here. Like, when you know the culture, he's like, hey, like, modesty, like, look, I'm not one of those people who's always like modest is hottest, right? You know, and that's certainly been abused. But I think there is this lens that we as people, both guys and girls, need to think through and said like, hey, I'm a child of God. And so how do I honor God with the way I dress, with what I'm doing with my body,
Yep.
right? And I know that gets a little bit uncomfortable to talk about sometimes, right? Because we live in a world and a culture that tells us we're not allowed to talk about that stuff. So we're not going to tell you what to do, but that is definitely a question to just wrestle with and be like, Jesus, like, how do I worship you with this physical body I'm in? Because your relationship's not just this like spiritual thing where it's like, well, I'm gonna say a prayer, it's gonna go up there, and that's all it is. Like, no, it encompasses all of who you are, and everything you do, including how you dress and what you buy and how you spend your time. Like, all of that points people either to Jesus or away from Jesus, right? So like that's a good thing to talk about. This whole conversation about learning, right? How do we approach learning? Are we showing up going like, hey, I've got something to say, or no, like, I've got something to learn? Well, you got 2 ears and one mouth, right? You've probably heard that before. It's like, is that our heartbeat? Is that our posture? Like, are we humble, or are we stepping in arrogantly into a conversation, be like, well, let me tell you what you should believe? Prayer. I mean, even talking about prayer, it's like, well, yeah, like, we should be praying. Like, there's so much good stuff in there. And yet, honestly, though, so many people miss that because they get so caught up on this thing that honestly does seem pretty offensive at face value.
So, ladies, please share your thoughts tonight.
Yes.
That's not what this is saying at all. And it makes me wonder, it's like, is there a part of our culture that we live in today that we need to practice taking a big step away from, that is not the norm for the people around us, but would help us in all the ways that you just described? So I'll just throw that out there. Maybe that's something you guys want to talk about.
Well, I mean, and remember, like, the goal of all of these people living in Ephesus, they were new Christians wanting to grow in their faith. Right? And so they intentionally, like, I remember this one time I did this, like, year-long discipleship program up at a place called Hume Lake out in California. And while we were there, we weren't allowed to listen to music, watch movies, watch TV, hang out one-on-one with a member of the opposite sex, or date, right? And it's not that any of those things are wrong. They just said, hey, for this season, would you guys be willing to give all of these things up to remove any kind of a distraction so that you can clearly hear God and be able to step into this place and really learn and grow for this season of time that you're here? And I remember talking to people about that, and they were like, dude, that's so, like, repressive. No music? And I was like, yeah, well, one, I chose it. But two, it was hard at first, but then it created these beautiful moments and pockets of time where God spoke to me in ways like that he had never spoken to me before. Because I was able to remove some of these distractions. And you're right, like, I do wonder, what are some of those things like in our world? Right? If a guy wants to quit drinking alcohol because he's an alcoholic, well, maybe he's going to stop going to bars and places that serve alcohol, right? Like, we choose to say no to some things, and it's not just for the sake of saying no. It's so that we could actually say yes to this better thing that we really want. And so I don't know what that is for you guys. Could be social media, right? Like, could be some of the places you hang out or some of the ways that you spend your time at, but could be worth leaning into.
For sure. I got nothing else. I
don't need a short chapter.
Time. All right, guys. Well,
hand it off to you guys. Leaders, got some questions. Try to keep it somewhat controlled, but also free reign.
Absolutely.
All
right.
See ya.